Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, saving money is just really tough? Like, for example, maybe you've skipped some Starbucks runs, or you've cut back on subscriptions, or you've maybe even created a budget, but it still feels like your savings aren't growing fast enough. Well, in today's video, I'm gonna share 5 powerful yet simple strategies that can help you on your way to double your savings in the next year without feeling like you're sacrificing the things that you enjoy. So whether you're saving for an emergency fund, a dream vacation, or you're just trying to break free from the paycheck to paycheck cycle, I think this video will be great for you. So sit back, grab a drink, and perhaps a notebook, because I think you will definitely want to take notes in this video for sure. And let's get into strategy number 1. The first strategy is to reevaluate the top categories of your expenses. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2024, most households have the same major expenses, and that is housing, transportation, and food/insurance. So I think that small changes on these top categories can actually help us save a lot of money very fast. Now, where a lot of people get it wrong is that I think they're always focused on the wrong thing, especially if you pay attention to social media or the internet. Many people try to focus on the wrong things. So for example, they might want you to cut out small expenses like Starbucks coffee. Let's say you spend $5 at Starbucks every visit and you go 3 times per week. Well, if you cut back from say 3 visits a week to 1 per week, you would save $520 a year. But that alone won't double your savings rate. So instead, I think you want to focus on the big expenses like housing, transportation, and insurance, because the small changes there can actually lead to much more significant results. For example, with housing, something you can do if you're renting is to negotiate how much you pay in rent if you have a good reason for it. So I just signed a lease on a new apartment and I was able to get a bit of a discount because I was willing to sign an extended lease. This gives the landlord more security knowing that they won't have to deal with a period of vacancy. And I was also able to get 2 weeks of free rent because the rental market in San Francisco right now is really soft. That's especially true in the winter because not many people want to move and find a new place during the winter time when the weather is not so great. So if you are looking for a new apartment right now, that's one strategy that you can have. Another strategy is perhaps you have an amenity or a parking space that is included in your rent. Perhaps you can renegotiate with your landlord to reduce how much you pay in exchange for those amenities, or perhaps reduce the amount that you pay in exchange for giving up that parking space. I think many times people are afraid to negotiate because they don't want to ruffle any feathers and they think that they don't have any leverage, but I think it's a quick way to save yourself a lot of money. Another method to reduce a top expense is your transportation budget. So for example, if you have car insurance, perhaps you can shop for better car insurance rates, or perhaps you bundle your home insurance with car insurance for a discount. Oftentimes, if you just call a competing insurance company, you may be able to find a cheaper insurance rate to the tune of $300 to $500 per year, depending on how many cars or items you have to insure. A lot of people are too lazy or they just don't want to spend the time to compare quotes, but I think in terms of a return on your time, in terms of your savings, it's probably one of the best things that you can do. Another idea for transportation is you could carpool more often to work, or you could take public transportation once a week instead of always driving. The point of this strategy, number 1, is to really take a good look and reflect at where you are spending the most amount of money and try to think of creative ways that you can bring that down. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what's gonna make the biggest impact on your wallet. So you can even pause the video right now, think about your biggest expense, whether that's housing, transportation, food, or insurance. Which one of these could you tweak to save some money, and jot it down on a piece of paper near you. All right, strategy number 2 is to do something called reverse budgeting. That's where you start by setting aside your savings first. For example, if your monthly income is $4,500 and you wanna save $500 per month, you wanna set that aside immediately, then use the remaining $4,000 for expenses like rent, groceries, bills, and transportation. The first step in doing this the right way is to start by analyzing your spending habits through bank and credit card statements, and a good exercise to figure out how much on average you spend every month is to track your expenses for 3 months. The reason you want to do 3 months is that oftentimes expenses will fluctuate month to month, and having a larger set of data to work with will give you as close to a true average of monthly spend that you can get. Once you've done that and you're able to see where your money is going, you can make a plan to reduce the spending on any problem categories that you might have. Now, in terms of how much you should be saving in terms of a savings rate, I always like to aim for 20%. That means if you're making $4,500 a month, like in our earlier example, you want to aim for $900 in savings per month. However, if you're finding that, say, your current savings rate is only 3% or 5%, you may want to start with a more attainable goal, like a 10% savings rate first. first. We always want to break down our goals into smaller chunks because it makes it easier to start and actually more reasonable that we get there. Now, the reason I like 20% is because not only is it 5 times the personal savings rate in the United States, according to Fred, it also ensures that you'll set aside enough of your money to grow over time and actually have a cushy retirement. Because I'm assuming that even when I say you should save 20%, like let's pretend that's the target, even if you don't get there, you might hit 15%, which is still pretty good. It's kind of like that saying, shoot for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars. Something like that. It's basically like if you aim high, even if you fall short, you'll still be in a great place. So pretend you aim for a 20% savings rate, but you end up realistically with a 15% savings rate instead. I still think that's great. If your salary is $60,000 a year starting at the age of 25 and you save and invest 15% of your income, over time, thanks to compounding and an average 8% return, that could grow into $2.5 million by the time you retire. Now, even if you can only manage to save $6,000 a year or 10% of your income, you're still looking at over $1.6 million compounded over 40 years, which is still a fantastic nest egg for your future. These numbers show how even small, consistent contributions can lead to incredible results, especially if you're able to start at a young age. Before we get into the third strategy, I want to shout out today's sponsor, Rakuten. You might not know this, but I like to golf like a lot, and golfing is a pretty involved hobby financially. You got to buy new golf balls, especially if you hit them into the water like I do, and new clubs and equipment can get expensive fast. But that's where Rakuten comes in, and honestly they can help you save a lot of money in tons of categories, not just sporting goods. They're partnered with over 3,500 brands like Adidas, Nike, and my personal favorite, Dick's Sporting Goods. Rakuten is the largest cashback site, and they help me get cash back on things that I'm already spending on. My personal hack for maximizing Rakuten's cashback is to check in on which retailers I use regularly that are partnered on the platform. Then I'll get strategic about my purchases because Rakuten also offers promo codes too. You can join completely free, and they even have a browser extension that does most of the heavy lifting for you. Join now using the link in my description and get a $40 sign-up bonus when you make a qualifying purchase, which is perfect for any last-minute Christmas shopping or, just to buy more golf balls. So many golf balls. Thanks again, Rakuten, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Strategy number 3 is to automate. So Morgan Housel, the author of The Psychology of Money, which is one of my favorite books on personal finance, he argues that savings rate is truly what matters because it's going to provide you with a cushion in case anything unpredictable happens to you. One of the ways to increase your savings rate in the next year without even thinking too much about it is automating it, because a lot of money management in general will come down to behavior. You can set up an automatic rule within your online banking on the days that you get paid. So for me, I get paid once a month by YouTube on the 21st. And when that happens, all of the money gets deposited into my checking account. Now, in my online banking, I do it through Chase. I just set up an automatic transfer to happen on the 22nd. It's an extra day later to be safe. And I move a portion of the money that I don't intend to spend right away into my savings account. This account will include any of the savings I'm going to do with that money, any investing, and all the money that I set aside for taxes. Essentially, it's any money that I don't need to spend in this exact moment. This allows me to save automatically, and it helps me avoid any temptation to spend the money in my bank account, and therefore I'm not dipping into my tax fund in order to spend money on something else in the business. And the reason it works is that it's a type of forced savings. So if you're somebody with a 401k and your contribution to your 401k comes out of your paycheck before you even see your paycheck, you're just not going to be tempted to spend that money at all. That's why it works so well. It's a psychological hack, and as humans, we are adaptable to many budgets, and I find that we tend to adjust our spending habits to fit how much we are making. By automating your savings, you will see your money grow steadily, and hopefully you are compounding your savings through getting a return on your cash, such as through a high yield savings account, or perhaps you're investing it. Strategy number 4 is to work backwards from a goal, and this is one of the simplest strategies that I have for you guys. If you really want to double the amount that you save next year, let's actually run through a scenario. Pretend you're saving $7,500 a year and you want to make it $15,000 next year. Let's look at how much more money you'll need to save incrementally. An extra $7,500 a year on a per month basis means that you need to save $625 per month. Now that number is still a little bit daunting, so can we break it down a little bit further? And in fact, you can. If you break it down per week, it's around $156 per week, which I think makes it a little bit more tangible. Breaking down a large savings goal into a smaller chunk works because it makes the goal seem less intimidating. So according to Scientific American, the secret to accomplishing big goals lies in breaking them into flexible, bite-sized chunks. In this article, researchers performed a study that showed that people were, quote, 4 times more likely to sign up for a savings program when the required deposit is described as $5 a day rather than the equivalent $150 per month. Hirschfield and his colleagues theorized that people may find it less painful to make frequent but small payments than they would to give up an equivalent large lump sum. Basically, sub-goals motivate people because then they can commit to smaller objectives, which in turn makes them more committed to the overall goal. The same goes with working out or perhaps running. So if someone told you to run 400 miles next year, it would probably make running seem impossible. However, if someone told you to run 7 miles a week or 1 mile per day, that seems a little bit more reasonable. And I know that entirely depends on if you think running is fun or torturous, but hopefully you get the idea here. So if you have a savings goal you've been meaning to set, try breaking it down right now and let me know in the comments what that goal is on a per month or a per week basis. I'd personally love to hear what your goals are, and you can compare your goal across everyone else's in the comment section as well. All right, strategy number 5 is to create a vault account. One big mental trick I have for you guys is to put your money aside in an account where you cannot touch it, and I like to call this the vault account. You really want to think of this account like a locked treasure chest. It's for safeguarding your wealth and not casual spending. You only get to unlock this in very critical situations or when you reach the end of the year or perhaps when you reach your savings goal. The way you set up a vault account is very simple. You want to open up a separate bank account with a provider that you don't normally use. So if your main bank funds are at a Chase Bank, perhaps you open up another account at a credit union or a high yield account at a bank like Ally, SoFi, or Goldman Sachs. Bonus points in my opinion if the bank is very far away in terms of proximity, if they have a physical location, and that way it's gonna make you think twice before you access your funds. Then you're gonna do 3 things. So the first is the same as in strategy number 3, which is to automate a portion of your paycheck to the vault account. Now this is an option that you can easily do as is right now. Second, you wanna make some rules for yourself with this account. So if you do end up withdrawing funds, make sure that it's only for big ticket purchases only, such as an emergency fund, a down payment on a home, or perhaps a long-term goal. Another rule you can enforce yourself is to only access these funds when the balance hits a certain amount, like 5K, 10K, 25K, etc. Now, for the third and most key part of a vault account, you want to make it hard to access. Write down the password to your online banking and keep it somewhere safe, but create a long and complex password, for example, the one on the screen right now. You want to actively try to forget this password. That way, this vault account is truly out of sight and out of mind until you need it or until you've hit your savings goal. I would also suggest you skip ordering a debit card for this account and definitely don't link it to any online apps like Venmo or PayPal. Normally, I don't tell you to make things hard for yourself, but if you can create as much friction as possible with this vault account, I think you're gonna be a lot better off because you're never gonna be able to touch that money. Until you need to, of course. All right, thanks for being here, guys. Those were my top 5 strategies to save more money in the next year. Which one did you resonate with the most? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to know how much money you should actually have saved by age in 2024 and 2025, make sure to watch that video right here. Lastly, if you're not already following me on Twitter or Instagram, make sure to follow me there because I'm posting content daily over there as well. And I will see you guys in a future video on the channel. All right, peace.